Hello, Parm Eftekari with the Health Tech Council. I'm joined with Jim Hauenstein, who's a CIO from Enloe Medical Center. Jim, it's great to have you with us today.
Armin, it's great to be here today.
Fantastic. Well, we heard Jim speak a little earlier about the human impact on IT, and obviously we're here at the council meeting talking about the transformation of healthcare through IT, and while technology is a catalyst for a lot of the transformation going on, we know that people play a tremendous part in the process. So I wanted to ask you if you could share some of your thoughts on that. To start off with, what do you think are some of the keys to a successful deployment or a successful initiative as it relates to the human factor?
First of all, I think from the human factor, if you're going to implement systems, you've got to involve the end user, okay? Especially today with the advanced clinicals. When I look at bedside medication verification, when I look at electronic medication administration record, when I look at physician order entry, physician documentation, physician progress notes, these are all clinical applications that are very complex, and they integrate into the overall system, but they integrate within themselves. And so if you don't involve the end user in the process, you're going to get a system that doesn't work for the end user.
Yeah.
So what we have done is we've employed an advanced clinical group in the hospital. That advanced clinical group is 12 FTEs in that. They're all brand new FTEs to the organization.
Wow.
Okay? And within there is RNs, there is radiology, pharmacy, lab, ED, and they all work together as a team. Now, we have the Meditech system, and in the Meditech system, what takes place there is it's supposed to be an integrated solution. So we have taken this advanced clinical team and trained them all on all the modules. Not one individual, but all 12 people learned every single module. So we have an integrated solution.
Okay.
You really have to invest in your users.
Yep.
When we posted the jobs, we had at a minimum 4 people, sometimes 8 people for the positions.
Wow.
They're coming out of nursing, they're coming out of pharmacy. They really want to be a part of change.
Yep.
And if you, even though they have no IT experience, they are very powerful because they know how the workflow goes within their realm of responsibility. But when you pull them together, that workflow, all of a sudden, they get a view of not only their workflow, but how that workflow impacts everybody else.
Sure.
Either at the front end or the back end. So, for me, the way I look at it, to be successful, you have to have the buy-in from the clinicians. We also have, we've put in place a CMIO. He's also a hospitalist. 50% of his time is CMIO, 50% is a hospitalist. Prior to that, he was chief of staff. So he was doing chief of staff, CMIO, and hospitalist, splitting his time.
Wow.
And we started out with 3 CIPSs, clinical informatics physician specialist. They were physicians. One was a hospitalist, one was a cardiac surgeon, and one was a general surgeon. And when we posted for these positions, we had at least 8 physicians that wanted to be a part of this.
That's great.
So the momentum, once you get it started, it continues. And 2 years ago, nurses had one side of the, you might as well say, one side of the fence, and physicians were on the other side, okay? They worked together, but they really didn't work together. You know, they were always rushing and trying to take care of their patients. Well, what we found out through the advanced clinical group and molding the physicians in with the advanced clinical group, that all of a sudden nursing and physicians are coming together as a team. Physicians will say, hey, you know, I've got a issue here with the system, and the nurse will say, here, let me help you.
Yeah.
And they've worked
A sense of ownership.
a sense
Yeah.
of ownership and a team
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about involving the end user in the whole process. Understand that this group, Advanced Clinical, report to the nursing administration. They do not. Their cost center and everything is out of nursing administration. They have a dotted line to me, like they have a dotted line to the CNIO. But we have put everybody will say, well, what about IT standards? Okay, guess what? We have a project manager that's part of the group that does make sure they cross the T's, dot the I's, on change control, on testing, on the way they implement, getting it, taking their changes to change control. I mean, this individual makes sure they follow all the IT standards, okay? And yet, they're in their world in the hospital, and we've got super users on the floor that when they can't solve an issue, they come into the advanced clinical group that's in the hospital, and they work with them. Last week, we had a meeting with, tell you how far we've come. We had a meeting with Performance Improvement Patient Safety Committee. 14 physicians stood on that committee. And 2 years ago, when Dr. Kaza introduced something, they were ready to lynch him. He introduced something last week, some changes to the system, and their response out of this group was, what do you mean I've got to wait until August for this? We want it now.
Wow.
So it's amazing what has happened in this environment. When you give the authority or the responsibility to the end users, it's amazing how they step up. But you have to invest in them.
Well, I think that's we've seen in so many other industries that when they, when IT forgets, and I think I said this last night, IT is nothing more than an enabler, and you have to remember that the goal is to support the business mission and support the your employees and the staff who are actually executing on the business mission. IT is not part of the mission. It's supporting that mission. I think what you're doing is critical, and we've seen so many industries, from finance to government to you name it, have this lesson learned. So it's great to hear that you guys are taking a leading edge on this, because a lot of hospitals I'm hearing have not figured this out yet.
I'll give you another end result of this. When we install bedside medication verification, okay, and the electronic medication administration record, we looked at the industry and we said, when you implement this, what should we expect for medications being scanned, okay? And the industry said, when you first start out for the first month, it's somewhere between 35 and 50% of all meds are scanned, okay? When we kicked it off, in the first 2 weeks, at the end of the first 2 weeks, we were at 74%. By the end of the month, we were at 88%. Today, we're at 99.9%.
Wow. So what do you think was the factor in that quick adoption? Was it that user engagement from the get-go?
The user ownership from the beginning. Okay? We went on site visits and everybody said, do not, under any circumstances, purchase carts. They will not work. They will sit in the corner. They won't use them after a month. The batteries will be dead. The scanners will be broken. You name it. Don't do it. We put devices in a room that they could look at on the wall. We brought in carts. The nurses said, this is what we want. We want carts. So we said, okay, if that's what you want, but understand, we expect you to use them.
Yeah.
And they've been installed for over a year. I do not have any problems with any of the carts. They are using them, but to support nursing, because they are not repair people and stuff like this.
Right.
We go on I got a help desk that runs 24/7. Every night, they walk the floor and they check every single cart to make sure that it's plugged in, to make sure that the keyboard's working, to make sure that the scanner's working, the mouse is working. Guess what? It's success.
Yep.
But you have to work as a partner.
Absolutely.
And the end result is the patient benefits by it.
Sure, sure. Which is the ultimate business mission of this industry.
That's the
absolutely.
ultimate.
So I think I know the answer to this, but aside from I guess maybe the way I should ask this is, how do you create a culture that, for someone watching right now, that maybe doesn't have a culture where they engage the patient, or they engage the user from the ground up, or maybe they have a CIO or a organization that doesn't support this, or thinks it's a waste of time, or they don't have the resources for it? How can they go about developing that kind of culture, getting buy-in from senior leadership that this is the way to go? What recommendations do you have for them?
There's a couple approaches. First of all, meaningful use has opened the door for this, okay? Because the organization is at a level where they need to implement advanced clinicals if they're going to receive their money,
Okay.
okay? And so it's an opportunity to change the way you do your implementations, okay? And you start out by building a relationship with physicians, okay? You take your physician leaders and you communicate with them. Physicians can go a long ways, okay? And they can get senior team excited. But my approach was, we had 2 failures. They brought in a consultant group. 9 months later, they failed. The CEO asked, put a structure together that's going to work, and come back and tell me what that looks like. I took it, sat down with some physicians, sat down with some nursing managers, and I said, what do we need here? Okay? And I said, what I'd like to propose is that you take ownership of the system. And their first response was, we're not IT. I said, this isn't an IT initiative. This is a clinical initiative. You understand your workflow. We can educate the care providers in IT. But I can't have an IT person fully understand what you do every day of the week. Whether you're a physician or a nurse, you have a certain thought process that you go through, and I can't draw that out.
And that's sometimes not what's on paper, right?
Right.
You can't give somebody an operating manual, operating procedures, and say, well, here's how it is. Read this, you'll be fine. Yeah.
So they bought into it. So I went back and I presented the org chart, and I said, we're going to start out with 4 advanced clinical people, informatics people. We're going to need 3 CIPSs, and we're going to need a CMIO. The CEO said, fine, if that's what you need to be successful, do it.
Fantastic.
Senior team was behind it. I said, okay. We started down that path, and the first project we were going to optimize Meditech. And we brought in Dearborn to help us. And Dearborn says, gee, that's a good structure, but where's IT? And I said, IT is where IT belongs. I says, they have the infrastructure, they have the servers, they have the network, they install the application as far as on the servers and stuff. But the actual build and everything is gonna happen over there.
Mhm.
And even they questioned me.
Yeah.
Thought I was a little cuckoo. But it didn't matter because I believe that that was the correct way of going.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we went down that path. Today we've got 2 CPSs, CIPSs, because we took one of them and we needed a medical director of clinical analytics. And one of the CIPSs said, I want to be there. That's what I want to be. And he left his practice, he was a general surgeon, left his practice to become a full-time medical director of clinical analytics.
Oh, wow, fantastic.
Okay? It's amazing what occurs when you get the momentum started.
That's right. Well, they see the value.
When they understand the value, when they feel part of the solution. I don't think there's one care provider out there, I don't care whether it's a nurse or a physician, that their ultimate passion is to take care of that patient and do the best job they can do.
Absolutely.
And, you know, when you give them the tools, it's amazing. And when you bring them in and do brainstorming with them, they appreciate it. Okay?
Sure.
They really do, because it's not IT is telling me what to do. I go down to the advanced clinical group and I watch them interact. It's amazing the interaction the group has and how they sit there and talk about how somebody will come down from the floor and they'll say, this is an issue. And they'll sit there and brainstorm and they talk about the system and how the system can be changed to make sure we don't have the issue anymore, okay?
Yeah.
But they're doing it,
Yeah.
okay? They're doing the brainstorming. They're figuring it out and saying, you know what? The system brought the issue up, but we've been doing it wrong for the last 10 years.
Yep.
Now the system has brought it to our attention. Now we have to figure out the right process, workflow process that's going to work for us, for lab, for radiology, for pharmacy, and they do it as a group. I can't do that as an IT person. That's got to come from them. And that's the real value of what you get out of this. It's amazing to me.
That's great. That's important. Well, I mean, I think this has been great. I think you shed a lot of light on this, and this is one of the, I often say that it's the most undervalued part of the process. It's the most under-discussed. And I think it's because, frankly, sometimes it seems to be the most difficult, because dealing with people and personalities and culture, and that's more difficult to change than throwing some money at a problem and buying a technology. So I applaud you for dealing with it. I think it's an important, exactly the way you need to go.
The thing is, anybody that wants to tackle this, they really have to believe in it.
Yep.
And they have to get support, okay? Whether it is from the physicians or nurses, whatever it may be, how they get that support to move forward. You have to build a relationship with the executive team and sell it to the executive team. You have to be out there selling the approach. But if the CIO can't understand that, it's an uphill battle, because the CIO has the link to the C-suite. And if you go around the CIO, okay, then the CIO will be offended. So somehow, through the meetings, meetings with physicians coming in and saying, why don't we do it this way? nurses coming in and saying, why don't we do it this way? You gotta peck away at it. It's a process that you have to go through.
Yeah.
And until the CIO can understand that their structure has to change, it's not gonna change unless the CIO leads.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's a, we talk about transformation, okay, IT transformation. IT transformation to me is changing the paradigm, the way you deliver services. We're a facilitator of systems.
Mm-hmm.
The systems, we don't operate. I don't go and sit down in the accounting department and do accounting work.
Yeah.
Okay? That's accounting. I don't go on the nurse's floor and enter nursing information. I don't enter CPOE for physicians. I'm a facilitator, and IT has to understand that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they can't get beyond that point, they won't get to the next stage of transformation as far as I'm concerned.
Completely agree. Jim, in the last minute we have here, I want to ask, this is your first experience with health tech, and I know that you're a health tech council member, which we're happy to have you. I wanted to know if you could share with the audience, what you think is the value of our type of forum and what makes this a unique experience for you and other executives.
I think health tech, I've gone to a lot of these type of conferences, and what impresses me about health tech is that it's a cross-section of people. You've brought a lot of dynamics into the group. It's not strictly healthcare. I've met attorneys, I've met state people, Navy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cross section, okay? And the communications, it's always great to hear other people's viewpoints. Not strictly, if you only listen to your circle,
Mm-hmm.
how do you move out of your circle?
Absolutely.
Okay? Here, you're allowed to move out of your circle. And I think that's huge. I think the boardroom sessions, everyone I've been to has had, you go into the boardroom and you have 6 sessions, and that 6 sessions you move from this to here to here. Each session takes the same people, and after 6 sessions you've gone around with 6 people or 8 people. Here, health tech, I have been through 6 sessions and not the same person in any of those sessions. I've met so many different people. I have so many different business cards. I have relationships that I know I can call on in the future, not 6 people,
Right.
but a large group of people. And to me, that's important. That's what conferences, summits should be about. It's the exchange of information, but not with just your own world. You have to leave it, and you have to find out what other people are doing. And I think that's what health tech brings to the table. It enriches your background for your education. When you're looking at things in the future, you can pick up the business card, make a phone call,
Yeah.
have that relationship. How did you do this? How did you do that? Because you remember what the conversation was in the meetings.
Sure.
And so it's invaluable.
Fantastic. Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. Well, Jim, thank you for being here. Thanks for your time, and look forward to seeing you next time.
It's been wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.